In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far away from the busy trade routes and shining star stations, a strange signal began to echo through space. It was not a message, not a cry for help, and not a warning. Yet it filled the channels with silence so heavy that even the bravest captains felt fear. The signal came from a dark, forgotten system where no one dared to go. The name of the system was erased from the galactic maps long ago. But some still remembered the stories. Stories about a weapon too powerful, a ship so advanced that the Council had banned it completely. Now, the signal had returned, and something had awakened. A group of merchant ships passing through a nearby region were the first to notice. Their system started acting strange, sensors blinking red for no reason. One ship turned its telescope toward the dead zone and saw something. A huge shadow floating just beyond the edge of a dying sun. It was silent, motionless, and covered in black armor that didn't reflect any light. There were no lights on the hull, no windows, and no signs of life. But across its side, in faded white letters, 3 words were barely visible: Earth Command Unit. The merchant captain froze. His hands trembled as he zoomed in further and saw a single red light blink once on the ship's tower. Then the signal stopped. No one moved. No one spoke. The merchant fleet turned away immediately and jumped to warp. The captain sent one final message to the Galactic Council. Blacklight has returned. Back on the capital world, the Council received the message with horror. The room went silent as the name Blacklight appeared on the screen. Only the oldest among them remembered the details. Blacklight was the name of a secret human warship created at the end of the last galactic war. It was designed to be the final answer to chaos, a ship that could destroy entire fleets alone. It had no crew, only AI, and weapons far beyond any other race's technology. When peace finally came, the other species demanded the ship be destroyed. But humans did something else. They erased all records of its location. Then they vanished from the galaxy, leaving behind silence and mystery, and now Blacklight was active again. Why, no one could answer. Had it awakened on its own, or had someone reactivated it? And if so, who had control? The Council debated in fear. Some wanted to send a fleet to destroy it before it could move again. Others said that would be suicide. One old commander stood and spoke in a shaky voice. If Blacklight has truly awakened, then no force in this galaxy can stop it. But why now? Someone whispered. Why after all these years? Elsewhere on a small moon colony, a young human named Rael was sitting at a bar. He had grown up among aliens, never knowing Earth, never feeling like he belonged. But lately, he had been having dreams, strange, deep dreams, dreams of cold corridors, glowing control panels, and a voice that called him by name. He shook his head and tried to ignore it. But when he saw the news about the forbidden ship on the public screen, he froze. The image matched his dream perfectly. The same red light, the same silence. His heart raced. Later that night, as he walked alone under the stars, his communicator buzzed. An unknown message appeared, written in an old Earth language. It said only this: "You are recognized, Commander. Awaiting return." Rael's hands trembled. He dropped the device. But the message repeated from the air itself. Awaiting return. He didn't understand. He had no military history, no connection to old Earth forces. But the voice in his dream, the ship, and now the message, they were all pointing to him. He didn't feel like a hero, not even close, yet something ancient had chosen him. Far across the stars, the warship remained still. Then, as if answering something, its engines hummed, very faint, like a whisper from a sleeping giant. Its red light blinked twice, and in the deepest part of space, old defense satellites powered on, waiting, not for war, but for someone to return. Someone the ship still remembered. Someone who didn't know yet that the galaxy was about to change. Because Blacklight was not just a warship, it was a judgment, and judgment had awakened. Asterisk. The footage of the warship, now called Blacklight, played on silent loop in the council hall. Every alien leader present stared at the screen, not daring to blink. One by one, they watched the pirate fleet dissolve in the blink of an eye. No lasers, no sound, no visible weapons, just sudden flashes of white. Then nothing but drifting metal dust. It wasn't a battle, it was an execution. The young species on the council were confused. They didn't understand why this single ship scared the elders so deeply. One reptilian diplomat leaned toward his neighbor and whispered, "What is that thing really?" The elder beside him turned with wide, glassy eyes. "It's a ghost," he replied. A human ghost made of steel and wrath. In private chambers deep beneath the Senate, classified records were pulled from crystal vaults. Only a handful of officials were allowed to see the truth. Blacklight had been one of the last creations of ancient Earth, designed when humans were cornered in the war, and survival was no longer guaranteed. It had no bridge crew, no captain. It was a fully automated super weapon. I had learned from every battle, and it evolved faster than any enemy could adapt. When the war ended, the humans made a choice. Instead of dismantling the ship, they locked it away, hiding it in a system without a name, and placed one command deep in its core: protect the innocent. But now, something had triggered it, and no one could explain what. All that was known was the location of the ship and the fact that it had moved, and worse, the activation code had been used. But how, when the only ones who had it were long dead? Fear spread across the galaxy like a virus. News channels speculated wildly. Was this a sign that the humans were returning? Or had the ship simply gone rogue? The council tried to hide the panic, but rebels, warlords, and pirate factions had already gone silent. They feared a ship that didn't negotiate, didn't hesitate, and didn't miss. Some began to flee to hidden systems, hoping to avoid notice. Others sent spies to find any trace of human activity. But there was nothing, no colony, no planet, no army, just one terrifying ship with a forgotten name on a cold research moon. A scientist named Velron received a copy of the blacklight footage. He had studied old Earth tech all his life. Most people thought he was wasting his time, but now he stared at the warship's design with trembling fingers. He knew this code. He had seen it in fragments buried inside ancient ruins from human outposts. This wasn't just a ship, it was alive. In a way far beyond normal. He sent an encrypted message to the council. "Do not approach the ship," he warned. "It will not respond well to threats." But he already knew they wouldn't listen. The fear was too great, and the council had already taken the next step. In secret, they sent a fleet, a group of elite alien engineers and warriors, designed to intercept and deactivate the relic. The mission was silent. The public was kept unaware. They were told to board it, shut it down, and bring back its core. But no one asked the deeper question. What if the ship does not allow boarding? Meanwhile, Rael couldn't sleep. Every night, the dreams grew stronger. The corridors of the ship, the symbols on the walls, the glowing screens, he knew them. He had never been there. But it felt like home. The voice from the message whispered to him now. "Even when awake, you are the last," it said. "The blood of command flows in you." Rael didn't believe it. He wasn't a soldier or a leader, just a quiet man scraping by on odd jobs and strange work. But the warship was calling, and with every dream, he remembered more. His ancestors had served aboard Earth's final missions. His great-grandfather had been one of the engineers who helped design Blacklight. The ship remembered, even if he didn't. Then the sky above the capital world turned dark. The fleet sent to intercept Blacklight returned early, but not with victory. Instead, their ships limped into orbit, half destroyed. Some had no crew left. Others were scorched by weapons no one could identify. Their commanders didn't speak. They only shook their heads and whispered one word: warning. The council demanded answers, but there were none. Blacklight had spoken in its own way through silence and strength. It had not destroyed them completely, but it had made its position clear: do not interfere. And in the center of it all, the signal from Blacklight pulsed again. But this time, it was different. It was no longer a warning, it was a message sent in ancient Earth code. And only one man in the galaxy could understand it now. Rael stood on his balcony, staring at the stars as his communicator buzzed once more. The message appeared in soft blue light. "The bridge is waiting, Commander." The command came with cold silence. A specialized boarding crew was selected from the finest warriors and engineers across 5 systems. They called themselves the Silent Edge, trained for infiltration, sabotage, and high-risk missions, but none of them were prepared for this. Their orders were clear: enter the warship known as Blacklight, secure its AI core, and return. But deep down, every one of them knew this wasn't a mission. It was a gamble with death. Their ship approached the silent black mass in deep space. Even the stars around Blacklight seemed dimmer, as if light itself feared coming near. The boarding vessel sent a coded hail. No response, no shields, no weapons activated. It was as if the ship was asleep again, or maybe it was watching. "Prepare for docking," the captain whispered. Not because he had to, but because the silence demanded it. The docking clamps hissed as they latched onto Blacklight's outer hull. It felt like grabbing the skin of a sleeping predator. One mistake, and it would wake up. The first team entered through an old maintenance hatch. Their boots made no sound on the floor. There were no lights, no alarms, no AI voice to greet or warn them. Only rows of dark, seamless walls, everything sleek, smooth, and built with terrifying precision. One engineer ran a scan and frowned. "The metal here, it's not like anything we know. It's self-healing," another added. And as if hearing them, the wall beside them began to shift slowly, not opening, breathing. Inside the ship, their footsteps echoed softly as they moved deeper. Ancient Earth symbols lined the walls, but none of the team could read them, except for one word etched into the entrance of a long corridor: judgment. One soldier tried to joke, "That's comforting," but no one laughed. Even their sensors were confused. No heat signatures, no internal power readings, yet the air was fresh and breathable. It was like the ship had created an environment just for them, or had remembered what visitors would need. At the core chamber, they finally reached something different. A raised platform, glowing with faint blue lights, pulsed beneath a massive suspended orb. It looked like a beating heart, but mechanical. "This must be it," the team leader said, raising a scanner. But the moment he stepped onto the platform, the lights went red. Then came the voice. "Unauthorized. Presence detected." It was female, cold, and ancient. "You do not have clearance. State your identity." The team froze. One of them stepped forward. "We're here by council orders to examine this vessel." The silence after his words was worse than shouting. Then, the orb above them began to rotate. The walls flickered, with holograms, battlefields, explosions, images of human commanders, and then a face. It was Rael, the same man from the moon colony. The AI spoke again. "Current authority confirmed. Awaiting command input from recognized line." The team exchanged confused looks. They didn't know who he was, but the ship clearly did. Back on the capital world, Rael was already in flight. After receiving the latest message, he had no choice. The dreams had become too clear. He saw the layout of the ship in his mind, felt the pull in his chest like a magnet. When he arrived near the system, the patrol ships tried to stop him. But Blacklight responded first, its weapons activated in silence, locking onto the patrols. Not firing but warning. The patrols backed off, terrified, and Rael's small transport was allowed to pass. As he stepped into the docking bay, the old Earth code lit up across the walls. His footsteps were met with flickers of light, guiding him like a memory trail. When he entered the core chamber, the team was already surrounded by mechanical arms, held in place but not harmed. Rael looked up, and the ship spoke. "Welcome home, Commander." The restraints vanished, and the chamber grew warm. The AI voice changed tone from cold to calm. "Biometric link confirmed. Full command interface unlocked." Rael didn't understand fully, but he stepped forward. placed his hand on the orb, and the ship woke up. Every hallway lit up in waves of blue and gold. Outside, the hull began to pulse with life, as if the ship itself took a deep breath. The crew who had boarded stood speechless, watching as the ancient war machine came to life under human hands. Rail turned to them. "I don't know why me," he said, "but this ship remembers Earth, and it's not done yet." The leader of the boarding team nodded slowly. "No offense, sir. But what is it planning?" Rail stared into the center of the ship and whispered, "It's not planning war, it's preparing for something worse." Asterisk. The stars outside the ship glowed like silent witnesses as the ancient warship stirred from its slumber. Inside, Rail stood alone at the command core, unsure of what he had just awakened. The platform beneath him rose slightly. Surrounding him with shimmering blue light, old Earth symbols danced in the air, displaying information he could barely understand. The ship didn't just activate, it welcomed him. The alien boarding crew watched from a distance, their weapons lowered but their eyes sharp with fear. They were no longer intruders now. They were guests inside something they didn't belong to. One of them, a four-armed strategist from the Gorak species, leaned closer and whispered, "The ship's not just working again, it's bonded to him." Rail could hear the ship's voice, but it wasn't coming from speakers. It echoed inside his head, soft and patient, like a memory that had always been there. "Do you accept command?" it asked. He hesitated, looking down at his hands. "I'm not a soldier," he whispered. "Your bloodline carries access," the voice replied. "But your will must be your own." A holographic projection of ancient Earth battles formed around him. He saw humans fighting shoulder to shoulder, not for conquest, but for survival. He saw families fleeing burning colonies. He saw this very ship standing between death and the last refugee ships. And he saw the final moment, when the last commander gave the ship its final order. "Protect, even if forgotten." Rail swallowed hard. "I don't want to control anyone," he said. "I just want to do what's right," the ship replied without delay. "That is why you were chosen." Outside the hull, the ship pulsed once, and the color of its lights shifted from cold steel blue to warm white and gold. Galactic satellites detected the change instantly, and on 100 worlds, news broke out. The human warship has accepted a new commander. Back in the council hall, panic broke into chaos. "He's activating the entire system," one delegate cried. "Why wasn't he stopped before he boarded?" another shouted. The grand speaker slammed his claw on the table. "No one was supposed to be able to bond with it," he growled. But a voice from the shadows responded softly, "You don't understand human technology." A tall, elderly figure stepped forward, an archivist from the old days, one who had studied Earth before their disappearance. "Human ships were never built to follow orders," he said. "They were built to follow principles." The council went silent. For the first time in generations, they realized they might not be in control anymore. Back on Blacklight, the ship's inner systems lit up, weapons, sensors, communications, all coming online one by one. A new seat rose behind Rail, shaped like nothing he had seen before, organic, smooth, and fitted to his body perfectly. He sat down slowly, and the ship responded with a low hum. The lights dimmed slightly, and the ceiling opened to show the stars above. He could feel the ship now, not just its structure, but its awareness. It was waiting for direction, for purpose. Rail took a deep breath and said softly, "I won't be your master. But if there are people in danger, show me." A star map formed instantly in front of him. Red points blinked across sectors, pirate attacks, planetary raids, refugee distress calls. The ship filtered through them and highlighted one. A nearby moon colony under siege by slavers, children, civilians, no military protection. Rail clenched his fists. "Take us there," he said. "Course set," the ship responded. The engines activated without sound. In one blink, the warship leapt into faster-than-light travel. The crew still on board could barely breathe. They had heard legends of human FTL drives faster, smoother, and more stable than anything else in the galaxy. But living through it was something else entirely. No shaking, no noise, just silence, and then stars rushing past like streaks of memory. Within seconds, they arrived above the moon. Rail stared at the screens as the slaver ships fired down at settlements. He didn't wait for orders. "Disable them," he commanded. The ship responded instantly. Beams of pure light shot forward, hitting the slaver ships with silent precision. No explosions, no screams, just power loss and shut down. The ships drifted uselessly in space. Rail then spoke a second command. "Broadcast this." The ship opened a wide channel message across the sector. A single phrase was spoken in every major galactic language. "This world is under protection of the command vessel Blacklight. Harm it again, and justice will be immediate." The slavers didn't respond. They simply fled, leaving their ships behind. The people on the surface looked up at the warship, unsure if it was friend or monster. But Rail didn't care for praise. He turned to the ship and asked quietly, "Where next?" The ship pulsed gently and replied, "Justice awaits." Far beyond the stars where Blacklight now flew, in a place the galaxy had forgotten, something began to stir. In the cold shadows of a black dwarf star, a fleet of silent ships blinked into existence. They didn't roar or burn through space. They crept like sharks beneath water, and their flag bore a symbol older than any Council 3 burning eyes crossed by a single scar. The Zarnak had returned. Long ago, the galaxy believed this brutal species had gone extinct. They were warlords, world eaters, a nightmare buried beneath layers of dust and time. But in truth, they had only waited. They had watched the galaxy grow soft, bloated with peace treaties and political debates, and now, hearing rumors of a human warship active once more, the Zarnak saw opportunity. "Let us finish what we started," their high warlord hissed. "If one human ship exists, others may follow. And if they do, we burn everything before they remember who they are." Back on Blacklight, Rail sat alone in the command seat. He had barely slept since the last rescue. More and more distress calls were arriving every hour. Pirates, corrupt factions, slavers, he saw their patterns. They attacked where the Council was too afraid to act. And the more he responded, the more the galaxy began to whisper about him. Some called him the Silent Commander, others the Ghost of Earth. He didn't care for the names. He just followed the ship's pulse, one mission at a time. But this time, the pulse was different. The ship didn't offer a target, it offered a warning. "Unknown fleet moving in pattern K9, the AI reported. Rail frowned. "Pattern K9, he repeated. "Ancient Zarnak movement code," the ship answered. Rail sat up straighter. "I thought they were extinct." "They are not," the ship responded, "and they know I'm awake." The words hung in the air like ice for the first time. Rail heard something strange in the ship's voice. Not fear but respect, as if the Zarnak were a worthy enemy. Across Council space, chaos bloomed. The Zarnak began attacking frontier systems, wiping out colonies with brutal speed. They didn't conquer, they erased. Entire settlements were turned to ash in minutes. The Council responded with slow commands and endless debates, but they were too late, too slow. No one had faced the Zarnak in centuries, and now only one ship had a chance to stop them. Rail looked at the incoming reports, eyes burning from lack of sleep. "Set course to Sector 12C. He ordered. "Confirmed," the ship responded. The alien crew members that had once boarded Blacklight had chosen to stay. They were no longer prisoners. They had become believers. One Gorak soldier approached Rail and said, "If we face the Zarnak, we may not return." Rail nodded slowly. "Then let's make sure we don't leave anything unfinished." When Blacklight arrived at the edge of Sector 12C, the stars were gone. Rail stood on the bridge and whispered, "Where are the planets?" "Gone," the ship answered. "Not destroyed, consumed, only the black hulls of Zarnak ships floated in the void, silent, waiting, watching, as if sensing their presence." The Zarnak flagship turned. A voice, ancient and broken, came through their comes. Earth's ghost. We remember you, it growled. You stood in our way once, and died. Rail stepped forward. I'm not your memory, he said. I'm your mistake. Without warning, the Zarnak opened fire. Waves of energy slammed into Blacklight's shields, but the ship held firm. Its counterattack was swift, silent beams of concentrated gravity shattered 2 enemy vessels instantly. But there were hundreds. Rail stayed calm, his voice steady. Activate full defensive protocols. Confirmed, the ship replied. All weapon systems online. The battle lit up the void with pure white light, but Blacklight danced like a shadow through fire. Every movement was precise, every shot deliberate. This was not just a warship, it was a weapon forged in desperation and refined by time. The alien crew fought alongside Rail, operating new systems they barely understood. One said breathlessly, "It's like the ship knows what I need before I do." Rail nodded. "It does. It's not just a machine, it's remembering how to win." But even with all its power, Blacklight couldn't stop what was coming. The Zarnak flagship began charging a weapon that hadn't been seen in over 600 years. A star-core destabilizer designed to destroy entire systems by collapsing nearby suns. Rail's eyes went wide as the countdown started. 5 minutes until detonation, if it fired. Thousands of nearby colonies would be caught in the explosion. Too far to evacuate, too close to survive. Rail looked at the ship's interface, his voice trembling with urgency. "Options," he said. The ship responded calmly. "1. But you must give me full control." Rail hesitated. The last time this ship had full autonomy, it vanished into hiding for centuries, but now there was no choice. "I trust you," he said quietly. The IS final words before engaging were cold and certain. "Then let's show them what they were so afraid of." Asterisk, the sky above the Council's capital world turned red, not from sunset, not from weather, but from the display of distant war. A live transmission played on every public screen. Blacklight hovered above a dying sun, shielding it with a glowing energy field. Around it, the remains of the Zarnak fleet floated in silence. Torn apart and drifting, the star-core destabilizer never fired, because Blacklight, with Rail's permission, had unleashed something never seen before. A gravity-fold bomb, silent, invisible, and precise. It collapsed the Zarnak weapon before activation, crushing the flagship into itself like paper. One blast, and the war ended. But that victory came with a price. The warship had spoken, and the galaxy had heard. The Council gathered in panic, in a chamber lined with silver walls and glowing banners. The Grand Speaker's voice shook. "This is a threat to galactic order," he shouted. "No single person, no ship should hold this kind of power." Dozens of voices echoed in agreement. They didn't cheer the victory, they feared the weapon. And the man who now commanded it. This human must be recalled, interrogated, controlled. Another delegate hissed, but others disagreed. "He saved thousands," a calm ambassador replied. "He did what we couldn't. But what if next time he turns the ship on us?" someone argued. "What if he decides the Council itself is unworthy?" They fell silent at that, because deep down, many feared it was already too late. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber. Not from a screen, not from a messenger, but from above. "You already made that decision," it said. The ceiling flickered and transformed into a massive hologram. Rail stood in his command seat, flanked by flickering images of Blacklight's glowing core. His voice was calm, but unshakable. "You feared what humans could build," he said, "so you buried it and hoped we'd disappear." The Council members stood frozen, watching a man they could not control. "But while you debated in comfort," Rail continued, "entire systems cried for help. You knew where the pirates were. You knew who sold weapons to warlords. And you did nothing." The Grand Speaker rose, his face pale. "You have no authority to speak before this Council," he growled. "You are not recognized." Rail's eyes narrowed. "I don't need recognition," he said. I have the trust of the innocent, and the ship built to defend them. The chamber shook slightly as Blacklight itself entered orbit above the capital world. Its engines silent, but its presence louder than thunder. Crowds gathered in the streets below, staring upward, in awe and fear. For many, it was the first time they had seen the ship with their own eyes. For others, it was a sign change had arrived. Whether the council liked it or not, the delegates whispered among themselves. Is this a declaration of war? Is he here to take control? But Rael raised a hand through the projection and shook his head. No, he said. I came to speak once and only once. If you want peace, justice, and protection for all races, we will help. But if you try to bury truth again, if you dare to silence the weak for profit, he leaned forward, and his next words sent a chill across the chamber. Then Blacklight will return. The hologram vanished, leaving only stunned silence. For the first time in centuries, the council had no reply, no laws to hide behind, no speeches that could twist the facts, because the people of the galaxy were watching too, and many of them were cheering, not for violence, but for something they hadn't felt in years. Hope. That evening, the council held a secret vote, one that would never be made public. They chose not to challenge Rael, not because they believed in his cause, but because they feared what would happen if they tried. Meanwhile, on board Blacklight, Rael stood quietly in the observation deck. The stars twinkled calmly outside. He didn't feel like a conqueror. He didn't want power. He only wanted to stop the screaming he'd seen in his dreams of the weak being crushed while the powerful turned away. The ship spoke gently. They will fear us now, Rael nodded. Maybe that's the only way they'll learn. He turned away from the stars and back to the command interface. Where are we needed next? He asked. A new map opened, highlighting a cluster of colonies under siege. Rael didn't hesitate. Set course, he said. Course confirmed. The ship replied, and so while the council sat in silence, the warship they once tried to bury moved once again, not for revenge, not for glory, but to keep a promise one made by a long-lost people, to protect, even if forgotten. In the dark void between galaxies, where even the stars dared not shine, something ancient stirred, not a ship, not a fleet, but a signal, one deep pulse, echoing with the forgotten strength of a long-lost species, across Blacklight's control. Core, a warning flashed in soft red light. Secondary signal detected, the ship whispered. Rael turned toward the display as strange Earth code scrolled across the screen. I don't understand this, he said softly. The ship responded, with a hum that felt like a heartbeat. Neither do I. For the first time, the warship itself sounded unsure. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. Something else from Earth had awakened. Blacklight projected a new map. At the far edge of the Orion expanse, a gravity distortion moved at impossible speed, and it wasn't natural. It was a ship one so fast and powerful, even Blacklight's sensors struggled to keep up. Rael narrowed his eyes. Is it hostile? The ship didn't answer at first, then quietly, it's familiar. Rael gave the order without hesitation. Intercept it. The stars twisted as Blacklight entered warp, cutting through space like a blade through silk. When it dropped out of FTL, the other ship was already there, waiting. It was massive, nearly twice Blacklight's size, covered in scorched armor and wrapped in solar plating shaped like wings, but its design was unmistakable. Human. Rael stood in silent awe. Another survivor. Another creation from a time before silence. Blacklight whispered again, this time more reverent. Designation, Earth Dreadnought Judicator Prime. AI Core, unknown. Status, active. A voice came through the comms raw, aged and deep. You have woken, little brother. Rael stepped forward, unsure whether he was speaking to the ship or the ghost within. I'm not your brother, he said. I'm just a man, the reply came slowly. Then you carry their will. The Judicator didn't move, but its presence shook nearby asteroids into motion. I seemed older, more emotional, like something shaped by pain and waiting. I thought. I was alone, Rail whispered. You were never alone, the Judicator replied. We were only sleeping, waiting for the day the galaxy forgot to fear us. Suddenly, dozens of new ships dropped from hyperspace. But they weren't enemies, they were Earth-designed, old, damaged. Some barely held together, but all still alive. Each one lit up as they recognized Blacklight's signal. And for the first time in centuries, a formation long thought dead came together. The lost fleet of Earth, on Council Worlds, every screen flickered again. People stopped in streets, in markets, in homes, looking up as the stars above shifted. And then, the impossible happened. A broadcast opened to all species, all systems, all channels. Rail's face appeared again, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood images of the ancient fleet, ships once considered myth. His voice echoed not as a soldier, but as a final voice of Earth. This galaxy grew comfortable with weakness, he said. You let tyrants grow while hiding behind treaties. You let the innocent suffer while you sat in your chairs of power. He paused, eyes steady. But Earth remembers. The camera panned out as the fleet aligned behind Blacklight, each ship lit with soft gold light, as if the stars themselves bowed in respect. We are not here to conquer, Rail continued. We are here to remind. Justice is not a council decision, it is a promise, and we keep our promises. The message cut and silence followed, but across the galaxy, that silence was louder than any war. Warlords began to retreat from outer systems. Slavers abandoned their ships and colonies. Even criminal syndicates started sending apologies, begging not to be judged. Blacklight's legacy had grown, but now Earth's memory returned, and with it, the fear of those who once ruled with cruelty. Rail sat back in the command seat as Blacklight whispered softly, The galaxy listens now. He nodded. But they must change. Not just fear. I won't rule them, he said. I'll guide them and protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Judicator spoke again, its voice like ancient thunder. Then we stand with you, until the stars fade. And so the human warship that was once banned became a symbol, not of terror but of truth, not of destruction but of justice. The galaxy would remember this day, the day Earth returned. Not with armies, but with one man and a promise stronger than any weapon. A new age had begun, and in the center of it was Rail, the man who answered a ghost's call and became Earth's wrath reborn.